What up, meatheads? This is Travis, American Butcher, and this is the Meat Block Podcast, the weekly podcast by butchers for everyone. And this is a special Saturday bonus episode. Hope you're enjoying your Saturday. Hope you could squeeze this in during your time of playing outside, chores, and enjoying your day off. And if you're working, hopefully this helps make your commute go by a little better. Without any further ado, here's Ryan O'Hearn talking about Wagyu beef.
Good cutting enhances the quality of good meat. In his way, the meat cutter is an artist. Poor cutting results in an inferior piece of meat, regardless of quality.
In a system where farmers and beef buyers are interested in marbling, the Wagyu breed and its tendency to produce excessive marbling has taken on a legendary sort of status in the industry. At the facility where I work, we do a USDA mobile kill and cut and wrap for several farmers that incorporate the Wagyu genetics into their herds. Usually the Wagyu characteristics are watered down, well diluted by other more common genetic lines such as Angus lines. Sometimes certain animals will have a stronger presence of the Wagyu. How can I tell this when looking at a carcass? Well, the intramuscular marbling is certainly a giveaway once I start cutting into it. But even more than this, the exterior fat cover will be a dead ringer for Wagyu as it's hanging on the hook on the rail. I can notice these characteristics. There's a certain look, there's a certain softness to the fat cover. It's a very pliable fat and will melt very easily. It will even melt from the human touch. If I were to handle it too much, the fat would soften and turn greasy in a very short span of time. We have one farmer who breeds and sells full-blooded Wagyu genetics. This farmer is responsible for the very first importation of full-blooded Wagyu females from Japan to the U.S. This was in 1993. Some sires had already been imported in years prior, but in 1993 was the first importation of full-blooded Wagyu females from Japan. In addition, he also acquired genetics from the next 6 importations after that, building his herd's composition primarily on Tajima strains. So anything I know about Wagyu is mostly from this gentleman. He was highly involved in the American Wagyu Association for many years, and he knows a lot about Wagyu. On his website it says this: our farm produces the highest marbling full-blooded sires and dams using Fukutsura 068, Sanjiru, Michifuku, and Takazakura, which are the top 4 U.S. bulls in the 2001 National Wagyu Sire Summary, as well as Kitaguni Jr., whose sire, Kitaguni 78, won the last All-Japan Carcass Contest, plus usage of Hirashige Tayasu, who sired the most registered full-blood progeny in Australia. At this guy's farm, they have an on-site embryo transfer facility, USDA inspected and licensed for embryo production and export, so that's what they do. Wagyu genetics are a deep rabbit hole one can easily get lost in. I wasn't familiar with these lines, so I looked into a few of them, and here's a few paragraphs on just a couple of those genetic lines. The Tajiri cattle are descendants of Tajiri, a sire born in Mikata district of the Hyogo prefecture. This is a large, influential sire line to which almost all strains within the Hyogo prefecture are related. The Tajiri line has outstanding genetic excellence with finely marbled beef in combination with a smaller frame and lower growth rates. This line is renowned for good temperament, demonstrated in a large number of sires as well as cows. Famous are the names Kobe beef and Matsuzaka beef from herds produced in Hyogo Prefecture using Tajiri bloodlines. So that was a paragraph on Tajiri. Here is a paragraph on Fujiyoshi. Fujiyoshi is a line of well-balanced cattle that produce calves with good growth rates and meat quality. They also have a quiet temperament and exhibit a strong maternal ability in dams, which consequently also have high fertility rates. The bloodline started in the Tomada district of the Okayama prefecture. While the number of key sires is relatively small compared to other lines, the Fujiyoshi line is listed as a major bull strain because of its excellent beef. Dai 7 Itozakura is a Fujiyoshi line bull, probably the most famous of the line. Next, here's a paragraph on Kedaka. This line formed in the Totori prefecture from the descendants of the sire Kedaka, born in 1959. Typical characteristics of the line include good growth, larger frame type, good top line, and overall balance. They are known for their fine, loose skin. Dai 20 Hirashige is an important sire of the Kedaka line. His semen is still used, and although the price per straw is over $1,000, $1,000 US, he gained 84.7 points as an Ikushi Taroku bull, which was the highest honor in Japan of the time. The number of registered sons of this bull is very high. Lastly, Kochi and Kumamoto. These are red strains that have been strongly influenced by Korean and European breeds, especially the Simmental breed. Okay, back to my ad lib. I personally have never eaten any Wagyu, so I can't vouch for what it might taste like. But I've broken and cut full-blooded Wagyu carcasses into steaks and roasts for this particular farmer that we work with. On cutting day, he has made it a habit to come into our cut and wrap facility and stand there next to us, watching us while we cut his beef. He's the only farmer out of our 200 members that does this. It doesn't bother me that he does this. It sure does cause me to slow down and make sure I'm doing a good job. So far, there's been no issue with my cutting of his beef that I am aware of. But he did manage to piss off two of my coworkers who were out at his farm with the kill truck processing his animals a couple years ago. Now, I'm just gossiping here. Please forgive me. I wasn't there, so I cannot relate to you the full story. I can only relate to you what my coworker's side of the story is. Our boss was not present either, and maybe if he had been there that day with them, this would not have happened. Who knows? Nevertheless, my coworkers were getting set up to shoot this guy's beeves, and upon looking at them, they noticed that the beeves were dirtier than usual. Now, we're obligated to add on an additional charge if the animals have excessive dirt or manure caked onto their hides. It just takes us that much more effort if they're dirty. So it makes sense to charge the farmer a small extra fee in order to prevent the dirt and manure from getting onto the muscle and fat of the carcass. We have to spend time with a curry comb and a pressurized hose, hosing this hide on the dead animal with water before we can then take a knife to the hide and open up the hide. So we spend a lot of time with that curry comb trying to get that stuff off, hosing it down with water. The dirtier the animal is, the more time and effort we have to spend doing this because the food safety risk is too great. So these two slaughtermen, my coworkers, are telling this guy, explaining to him that they'll need to add on an additional fee because his animals are muddy. And apparently the farmer gets very aggravated and curses them out. Again, I was not there, so this is hearsay. But my coworkers described him as getting very condescending and bad-mouthing to them. They didn't talk to him the rest of the day. I think they put their blinders on and heads down and just kept working. They continued working all day and finished his beef. But both these guys, to this day, refuse to talk to this gentleman. So he really got on their bad side. I couldn't help but wonder why they stayed and continued working. I think it would have been well within their rights to say, sorry, bud, we're going to have to reschedule your beef for another day when you can talk to us more respectfully. Another idea would have been to call the HR lady or the manager and have them give the farmer some sort of warning over the phone, or, I don't know, ask for an apology, some sort of mediation. Could have been a course of action for those slaughtermen that day. The farmer clearly needed some sort of consequence or accountability. I like it when working for a company, the protocols for these types of scenarios are crystal clear and well gone over by management, because they're bound to happen. When I worked for a corporate grocery chain, they did a really good job of preemptively teaching employees how to handle disgruntled customers. Big companies have to think of everything, which is a good thing. Sometimes, though, with smaller companies, protocols can be far murkier. Bosses can get away with mistreating their employees, and there's no checks and balances system in place to prevent them from doing that. Often a strong ability to advocate for oneself is necessary in a small business setting. Customers also are in a position of power. They have the power to slander the company name or to slander an employee's name that they didn't like for whatever reason. And sometimes customers will cross a line and act disrespectfully, and the employees and managers allow this to happen. In a small retail setting, one of my most favorite bosses I ever had told us all very clearly, if a customer swears at you or insults you in any way, you have my permission to kick them out of the store. I don't care if it's the mayor. I don't care if it's a millionaire investor who just walked in. You have my permission to tell them to leave immediately and call the police if they do not leave. I love that. I love that so much. This boss valued his employees and wouldn't tolerate them being mistreated. I have a hard time when a boss directly or indirectly implies that we need to act submissively to the wealthy, powerful, and influential people that come into the store. Sometimes bosses and owners will allow this double standard, saying or implying, don't let any customers talk disrespectfully to you, but, oh yeah, if I talk disrespectfully to you, it's okay. And, oh yeah, if it's a powerful, influential person who talks disrespectfully to you, it's okay. And on and on and on. I don't like working for a boss like that. To bring this conversation back to Wagyu, Wagyu beef has become associated with the rich and powerful. And when selling Wagyu beef to wealthy customers or when killing and cutting for millionaire farmers, remember to insist that they treat you respectfully. And then here's one more paragraph. Here's one more paragraph on the history, a little bit of history of the Wagyu breed. Originally draft animals, Wagyu were used in agriculture, selected for their physical endurance. This physicality made for a more flavorful and therefore more desirable animal, as it contained additional intramuscular fat cells. This marbling provided a better source of energy for human consumption. Japanese Wagyu derive from native Asian cattle. There is some evidence of genetic separation into the Wagyu strains as much as 35,000 years ago. There were infusions of British and European breeds in the late 1800s, but the Wagyu were closed to outside genetic mixing in 1910. The variation of conformity within the Wagyu breed is greater than the variations across British and European breeds. These differences have produced a Japanese national herd comprising 90% black cattle, with the remainder being red.
All right. Thanks, Ryan. And I hope you enjoyed this special Saturday edition of the Meat Block Podcast. And if you're listening to it on a day other than Saturday, then I hope you enjoyed just this bonus episode. There's going to be no outro song because the time it takes, and I'm pumping this out literally the day of. It is noon on Saturday, and I want to get it released in the next hour. And all I ask in return from you guys for this sweet bonus episode, thank you, Ryan, for creating the content, is your retail or just processing horror stories. What's the worst stuff you've seen in this industry, or what's the most comedic stuff you've seen? What's the most awkward stuff you've seen? We would love to hear from you, and you could get a hold of us at themeatblockpodcast@gmail.com, Instagram at themeatblockpod, or just themeatblock. Our Twitter is at themeatblockpod, and Facebook, the Meat Block. And head over to our Facebook group. I'm doing weekly bonus videos over there where I'll answer questions. So send those questions as well. If you want to get a hold of Ryan, he is at Gather and Break on Instagram. If you want to get a hold of myself, Travis, I am at American Butcher on Instagram and Facebook. Until next time, keep your knife sharp and live in the margin.